that's a nun. I'm sorry, sister. Sister Ann, are you okay? Okay, come with me. All right? Think it out. Use your head. The advantage we have. All right? The advantages we have are our brains, our creativity, and the justice of our cause. All right? And you've got to use all of those things to the max. All right? Those are your best weapons. You got to use them. You got to think it out. Think out what really motivates the police. Who's giving them orders? Where are these orders coming from? Why are they there? Why is this human being in a police uniform behaving the way he is right now? Not some cookie-cutter stereotype that he's a fascist pig who wants to destroy me. That's usually not true. All right? Think it out. Get inside his head and use your knowledge. All right? And you'll always come out ahead. You'll always come out ahead. Again, remember, it's not law enforcement. It's counterinsurgency. But they don't know how to win. And they know it. Okay? They know it. Okay? Yeah, another thing is, he mentioned the right to remain silent. All right, that's a good thing. You've all heard it. All right, a couple of things. First of all, for the kinds of things you're going to get arrested for, it's going to be something that the police officer actually witnesses. All right? It's going to be what they call an on-site arrest. Okay? Not a report from somebody else. No witness. They saw it. They're going to write the report based on what they saw. So in most of those circumstances, they're not going to take a statement from you. All right? They're not even going to bother. To the extent they talk to you, it's going to be shooting you in the shit. All right? But you do have the right to remain silent, meaning you should exercise caution with anything you say once you're in custody. All right? And what do I mean exercise caution? Well, a couple of things. First of all, tell the police officer you're identifying information. But aside from that, don't do any talking. All right? And then once you're in the lockup, don't talk about it there either. You should assume, as long as you're in custody, that anything you say is being recorded. Because sometimes they do. They don't always. You know, they do things. They'll put recording devices in the cells. They'll put a snitch into the cell to talk you up. Hey, tell me what you were doing. What are you in here for? They get you to admit something. All right? And then next thing you know, you're in court charged with the crime, and who's there testifying against you? Your cellmate. All right? Keep your mouth shut when you're in custody. Now, that's easier said than done. Everybody knows you have the right to remain silent. All right? But it's actually hard to do in practice. It really is. You know, everybody knows their Miranda rights, all right? But I deal with people who've been arrested all the time, and they talk all the time, all right? And people admit that, you've heard about it. We had people on death row who admitted that they had committed a crime. And then years later, the DNA says, no, this guy couldn't have done this. What's going on? Were those people stupid? No. It is the nature of in-custody interrogation that people want to talk and want to please the people who got them in custody. Have you heard of Stockholm Syndrome? Okay, it's the same thing. It's hostage syndrome. What I talked about before, when you take somebody's liberty away from them, weird things happen. The person who's had his liberty taken away from him, over time, sometimes a very brief period of time, empathizes with the person who's deprived them of liberty. That's how you get somebody admitting a crime they didn't commit. Yeah, you want to please the person who's taking your freedom. Weird thing, but yeah, they call it Stockholm Syndrome because, you know, it was a situation in Stockholm back in the 70s where somebody hijacked a plane or robbed a bank, took a bunch of hostages, and by the time these people got free, they agreed with the people who'd taken them. And they came out and talked to the cameras and said, well, these were nice people. We should have given them what they wanted. All right? Understand that.
They tortured me.
Sure. Yeah, you know, that's another thing. Vulnerable people. All right? All right? Some people are more vulnerable than others. All right? Now, that hasn't really been an issue for you yet. All right? Because, I mean, you know, we talk of actions in terms of colors. All right? You guys, I mean, there's red, there's yellow, and there's green. You guys have made a decision to stay green. All right? And, you know, that gives you, it makes it less likely you're going to have a legal problem. It doesn't guarantee it, but it makes it less likely. Sometimes people do red actions where there's going to be violence. All right? Sometimes people do yellow actions where there's some risk of it, or risk of arrest. You guys have stayed green. That classification is a good way of thinking of people, too. All right? Me, I've got no record. All right? I'm a native-born U.S. citizen. I'm green. Okay? I'm arrestable. I can take a risk. All right? Somebody who has already been arrested and is out on bond, that's got a higher risk. Somebody who's on parole, probation, all right? Somebody who's an alien, all right? If you're a legal alien, you've got more risk than me. If you're an undocumented alien, you've got a much higher risk than me, all right? So people who are not green, all right? If you're yellow, if you're red, meaning I can't take a risk of arrest or I have to be really careful about getting arrested, act accordingly, all right? And people who are working with them, encourage them to do that. I mean, I was doing an action yesterday, and there was one guy who had done an action before and got himself arrested, and he was still on court supervision. And he said that, and the organizer said, okay, you're staying on the sidelines, you're going to do logistics, you're not going to go and do this action. That's a wise way to deal with it. Make sure your people know, the people you're with know that you're not green, that you've got something about you or your record, court supervision, parole, probation, okay, immigration status that makes you more vulnerable than other people, all right? And as a group, don't consider them cowards or chickens. Understand the risks are higher for them. So those people generally, first identify yourselves so everybody knows it, all right? And then secondly, everybody look out for them. And if it looks like something's going to get hot, make sure they're far away from the risk of arrest, because the consequences are much worse for them than they are, say, for me. I'm totally green. I can take a lot more risk than, say, an undocumented alien. If I get cracked, you know, in most cases, worst case scenario, I'm going down for a misdemeanor. Undocumented alien, deported. It's terrible. All right? That person's red. I'm green. Take that into account.
What about people serving in the military?
That's another can of worms. Ooh. If we got anybody in the military, I'm going to refer you to the military law clinic at John Marshall Law School, because that's a very tricky situation, and I don't pretend to know the answer. And they've got a very good clinic at John Marshall Law School. They got a grant. It's run by a veteran. They're very good at what they do, and I talk to them about it. Okay? I don't pretend to know military law, but they're a great resource. Yes?
I just wanted to plead with everybody here to consider something before you put yourself in a situation where you're going to have a confrontation with a police officer, potentially get arrested. The reason why we're in this whole thing is because we're 99% and there's 1% that has most of the wealth and the resources, which means that if you walk in and put yourself in a stupid situation and you get arrested, as many of my friends have in different networks that I know, you to a certain degree can become a burden on the movement and on the organization. You need to make, what Jerry's saying is think and be strategic about your action. There are many ways to accomplish a goal. Don't strain your network, don't strain the movement by making a stupid decision and acting hasty. That's the point.
I want to point that out because to the extent you don't have experience with this is what happens. Somebody does something that gets them arrested. Then the focus becomes raising bail. Then they're getting prosecuted. Then they become the LaSalle Street Six. Okay, then it all becomes about the LaSalle Street Six. And that's not what you're here for. That is a distraction. It is a mistake to go that way. Then you're raising money for the lawyers. Okay, they are the martyrs, blah, blah, blah. I mean, sometimes you have no choice but to do that. All right, but understand, that's what happens. And you just, and what's happened there is you've let them decide, determine your agenda, determine what your focus is, all right? What your resources are going to go to, who gets the attention, they become the heroes of your movement. Do you really want to do that? Or do you really just want to defuse this cop and get him out of there and off your back? All right?
Yeah.
At some point you may make those choices. As of now, that's not your choice. All right? So keep that in mind. Yeah.
I just wanted to say he's been with me a different way. I have no voice, which I'm at best.
Okay.
I wanted to plead with you not to go that way, not only because it's just bad business, bad news. If you guys have never been to jail, especially in Chicago, I am telling you, I think we should seriously.
What he's saying is, he's pleading with you not to go that way.
You will be. I'm a girl. I'm sorry.
I'm
You've been doing it all week.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But you will eat bologna with mustard and bread every day. You're lucky if you get mustard.
It is pretty miserable.
The bottom of the barrel of the earth.
It is pretty miserable being in jail. He's recommending against it. I'm sorry.
Irrelevant.
I apologize.
It's the boys
Yeah.
play with your head.
And more importantly, I mean, he's recommending against it. She's recommending against action that will lead to arrest. You guys decide those things at your GAs. All right?
Everybody wants to detail them how bad it is.
Talk to her. I've been there. It sucks. Okay? And it's not fun.
It's meant to break
Right.
you and everyone that's affiliated.
Yes. In my briefcase, I get to one.
They're terrorists. They terrorize you.
What are the biggest lessons we can learn from what happened on the Brooklyn Bridge?
Oh.
Follow the cops. Don't follow cops.
You have to be careful. All right? And for instance, that's exactly what happened here when the war broke out. All right? A group of 800 people ended up going down the street. All right? Breaking off from the main group that was going down the drive. They got encircled. You could not leave. All right? Some of us got out. All right? A few of us got out. All right? How did I get out? Okay, I was wearing my uniform. Okay? And I was with two red people who were out on parole. All right? And they're like, we can't afford to get arrested. And I said, follow me, act like you're confused tourists and you don't know what the fuck's going on. And, they had the ninjas shoulder to shoulder and they weren't moving. They were not letting anybody leave. And I walked up to the line and I looked them in the eye and I said, excuse me. And they moved. A few people were able to pull that off. But they were prevented from leaving, and then they were arrested for refusing an order to leave.